Let's make a scarf together. First things first, you'll need an assortment of coloured fibre. I'm doing a random pick and grab kind of spin using Ashford Corriedale in an assortment of colours. I'm also using some leftovers from bats. Those were also made with Ashford Corriedale. I'm going to be spinning this yarn on the Ashford Kiwi 3. It's really important when setting up your wheel for spinning this yarn, being a bulky yarn, that you choose the largest whirl available to you on your spinning wheel. That's going to mean that your flyer turns less for each treadle. And in a bulky yarn, you don't want to be adding too much twist or it will be overspun very easily. So make sure you thread your flyer, attach your brake band if you're using Scotch tension, adjust any of these settings as you get started. I really like this nifty holding place on the Kiwi for that orifice hook. So I'm just making my spin a little bit more random by tearing up the colours I've chosen into smaller strips. So as I spin, I can just grab at random and be pleasantly surprised as I go. So first things first, attach your fibre to your leader. And I'm demonstrating this a few times throughout this video so that you get a good idea of how to attach your fibre to your yarn. You'll be wanting to spin in the Z twist direction, which is the right. So you're spinning clockwise for your singles. The singles are fairly bulky. I aimed for around 8 or 9 wraps per inch. I will demonstrate wrapping a ruler in a bit, but if you already have a gauge measure on hand, you might like to check that as you go. The reason I'm doing this is when you are plying it back on itself, like so, it should end up about 6 wraps per inch to 7 wraps per inch. So you spin your singles at about 2/3 of the finished weight that you like. This doesn't always hold true, so it's really important to spin samples if it's a new fibre to you or just a new spin in general. So I'd spin around maybe 10 grams to 20 grams to do a little sample up, wash it and finish as you would your normal yarn to see how it behaves. So wrapping the plied yarn around here at the moment just to check how many wraps per inch I was getting. And just a closer view of my hands so that you can see the drafting action. So you can see that for every draft, I'm pulling about the same amount of fibre from my fibre source with each treadle. I think I worked out that I did about 2 drafts per full treadle. So I paid attention to my right foot only. So I had sort of 2 treadles per every step of my right treadle. And so we will just be attaching some more fibre shortly. So you can see that I'm lining up just a few wispy strands from the new fibre source with the yarn that I've already creating to create a really secure join, and then bringing that back down in line with the spinning that I was doing. You want to try and grab about the same amount of fibre with each draft, otherwise you'll end up spinning thinner or thicker, which can lead to breakages and a lot more inconsistencies. We will be weaving with this yarn, so for this particular project I'm really not concerned about having those variances because I think they actually look quite lovely within the woven fabric. Just showing you a few different angles of the spin for those of you that are newer to spinning. In my right hand, I'm holding my fibre and I hold that quite gently, similar to how you would hold, say, a bird's egg or nest is the best way to describe that. And then I am using my left hand to draft forward. I actually spin, I believe they consider this to be left-handed, so if you prefer to spin the other way, do that. Whatever comes naturally to you. There's no right, there's no wrong. On the right, you can see I've just done a wrap test there. So you might like to rewind to have another look at that if you need to have a little bit more guidance on how to check that yarn measurement. So all I'm doing is looking at the 1 inch to 2 inch sections, wrapping my yarn around, not too tightly, and counting the wraps within a 1 inch section. The other way to stay really consistent is if you break off a piece of your singles yarn or your ply back test so that you have that on hand to refer back to. So here's my finished bobbin. Now I do need to pair it with another strand of yarn. So next up I will be spinning up just a plain white Ashford. I'm not sure if it's merino or Corriedale. It may be their merino. Either way, lovely fluff to spin. The Corriedale in particular is excellent for our beginner spinners. It's a little bit more toothy. It's still fine for next to skin unless you are super sensitive, but the toothiness of the fibre makes it less slippery, so that just makes it so much easier to not lose your end when you're learning. So again, making sure we're back on the largest whirl available. And this second single will also be spun to the right. So you can see that beautiful fluff there. It was just delightful to spin. For a scarf this size, you might like about 150 to 200 grams of yarn to get a really generous size scarf, but it's going to depend so much on how wide you decide you want your scarf, how long, your own spinning style. If your yarn is quite compact, it makes it heavier, so you will go through more more fibre. So we'll fast forward through this quite a bit because you've already watched me do a fair bit of spinning. Same thing again, double checking our wraps per inch as we go, just to keep it relatively consistent. Checking our wraps per inch again, just using a ruler this time, and having a look at my ply back sample to make sure that I'm happy with how it's looking. It will again change once I wash it, but not too significantly with this fibre. So wrapping around, not too tightly, not too loosely, making sure I snug them up against each other, aiming for around that sort of 8 to 9 wraps per inch, because then when it's plied, that will give me about 6 wraps per inch. Another close-up view, very easy to see the consistency in drafting with the staple length there. If I start taking too much or too few strands, it really affects the thickness of the yarn, and I'll demonstrate that as well. So here we have grabbing too many fibres in one go, and you start seeing that really thick and thin coming through. And now if I'm not taking enough fibres, you can see that the yarn gets quite fine. And the problem with that, especially while using such a large whirl, is that not enough twist will be holding those fine yarns together, and it will start to drift apart. Another trick you can do for creating consistent bulkies is just to, if you're using roving or comb top that is just to tear it down into more manageable strips so that you don't actually have to draft very much at all. So now we have our 2 bobbins. We will put a fresh bobbin onto the Ashford kiwi and we will ply the yarns together. And so for plying, we will be working in the opposite direction. We're still going to be using a large whirl, but we will be spinning in what's known as the S direction, which is counterclockwise. And the great thing about the kiwi is that it has a built-in lazy cage, which I've popped both full bobbins onto so that I can just ply straight from the wheel. Again, making sure we remember to put our brake band on. Threading through the orifice again. And then we'll join our 2 yarns together through the leader thread. So you can see the active twist, especially in that white yarn there, and that will balance out really beautifully once we start plying. If you wanted to leave your yarn as a single, you would not add so much twist. So you'd still have some active twist there, but not that much. So remembering that we're going to the left and counterclockwise. Just tightening up my brake band a little because I want this yarn to draw in a little faster. I'm still using the same whirl. I could also, if I had a bigger whirl available, I could choose to use that instead. And then just making sure I try and draft from both bobbins evenly. A lot of people do rush through the plying, but it's really important that we still try and draft to a rhythm so that we're adding our twist in and letting the yarn balance as evenly as possible as we go. So it's hard to notice, but in my right hand that's holding the 2 yarns, I've got them slightly separated there, keeping a consistent angle, but I'm using those to also gently tug the yarn from the bobbins so that I'm not having to pull with my leading hand there. So I encourage you to use a metronome or music if plying yarn and spinning is new to you, so that you can just use the beat of it to help keep your drafting and your treadling in line. Because once you start having those differences, you start getting areas of higher twist or less twist, which really influences how the yarn looks in the end. It's also important that as you spin and ply to be moving your yarn along either on the hooks or by sliding the sliding hook flyer, depending on what your wheel has. And that just helps the bobbin feel more evenly, which lets you actually put more yarn onto your bobbin. It's also a good chance each time you have to move the yarn along the bobbin to have a look at how your singles applied yarn are looking and make adjustments as needed. So we're nearly at the end of this bobbin. Once this comes off, I'll wind it into a skein using a niddy noddy. I'll put multiple ties on it, and then I'll give it a soak in some unicorn fibre wash and hang it in the shade to line dry. I don't weight my yarn because I don't want to hide any potential actual twist that might skew a project.